All right, welcome to another episode of Throttle Stop Garage. If you've been following on in the process so far, you've got your way through to the third episode, and we're trying to finish up our English wheel. So everything in this episode is going to be about the details that I've been leaving out. Stay tuned. With every project, we still have a very long way to go. Building the frame seems like you're done. You're not even close to being done. It's just like building a car, right? So the brave will start, the truly determined and crazy will finish. Anyway, so I bought a set of wheels, again, from Hoosier Profiles. Unfortunately, I believe that they are no longer manufacturing these things, but if you do want to contact them, I will put a link. I'm not being sponsored by these guys. Nothing could be further from the truth. But anyway, they just do such beautiful work. So we have a set of wheels. We need to get them mounted. I need a yoke for the top. I need to get some way of mounting the wheel. The wheel's going to get mounted to my welding table, and most of the time it's going to be sitting in the corner, just like everyone else's wheel that I've seen in all the shops that I've been visiting. I need to finish off the welding on the inside, and I need to do a bunch of just general finish work before we send it out for powder coat. You don't want to send it out for powder coat assuming that they're going to make your job look better if it didn't look good at the start. All right, so without any further ado, let's cut to the chase and get after it and get some work done. So first up on that work is going to be starting in on the yoke, and I'm just going to lay it out. If you ask me for plans, and other people have, I don't have any for any of this. This is taking place. I've recorded it in real time. I have no drawings for this. I'm just going to make a yoke. So we're starting off with this 10 mil plate that I have, 150 mil wide, so 6 inches, and it's 3/8 plate. Got to get that mill scale off. Boy, this hot rolled stuff is just garbage. The mill scale's so heavy on it, and it's not even close. But now we can do the layout. So I'm going to use the parts. There you can see I've got a little depth adapter for my digital caliper. So handy to have that. And we're just writing down all the measurements. I've got some spacers so that the bearings don't foul on the yoke itself. So I need to space it out a little bit. And then I go ahead and measure the width of the wheel. And you can see there, I'm getting anal. I'm changing the last digit because I went and got the micrometers out. All right, so putting all that back away. Oops. Got to remember to get every last measurement out of this. So there it is. That's the entire design, folks. Just wrote it out on a piece of steel. So now that that bluing is gone and dried up, we'll get after it here and lay it out. Again, I do prefer to use direct measurement methods. They're just more accurate in terms of doing things. I roughly lay this out initially because I'd like to get rid of the last little bit off of that long piece of bar stock. So I'm just gonna roughly doodle some stuff in here, go, okay, that's kind of the material I need, and then away we go. So we're starting to cut it all up. And this is going to be the yoke part. That first part that I cut off, that's going to be the piece that the sort of sides of the yoke fit into. And now I'm going to start laying out the parts that are actually going to hold the wheel, if you like. I left this time lapse in because I thought it was kind of funny. It looks like there's flames shooting across the side of my wheel, but in fact, I'm just using a cutoff wheel to chop the roughly cut out those shapes. All right, so last thing I have to do is be able to get all the other bits and pieces doodled in. So I'm going to stop talking and let the music take over.
Alright, so finally the reamer has got drilled through there. So that's a 3/4 inch hole with my little drill press. That's not too bad. Now, I went back to the farm store and bought some V-hubs this time because they're cheap and they're machined and they're 3/4 of an inch, which is what I need for this project. And I just cut the flange off of them, welded them on, and then that gets me a keyed and aligned shaft, right? So that's going to work perfectly. Again, I don't have a mill, I don't have a lathe. And yeah, my neighbor sometimes trolls me on my own channel saying, hey, come on over and use my stuff. But hey, he's not always out in his garage. So finally figured out how to get this stupid thing propped up on my weld table. So with the shaft inserted and the parts welded together, I do hope that thing is going to stay straight. Now, off to the big belt sander, and we start cutting them apart just by grinding those weld areas off. And then, no kidding, this time I actually did take the chisel out, and I did separate it without even using the hammer. It just split, which is beautiful. So now both those pieces are about as identical as you can make them, by hand anyway. And I'm always cleaning up surfaces with the file. Right, so the last thing I have to do on that top mount plate is get the grooves ground in for where my little ball stop is going to click in to those parts. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the first video on how I made the adjuster for this wheel project. And I do love it when you've got the machinings worked out and you just put the bolts in and they line up. So that's that spacer going in, and we're done.
Okay, so that's the machining on that part done. You can see here we've got the screws are nicely let in. Those are the intersecting points where the little ball stop will click into, right on that top plate. I've touched up all the edges, made it look real pretty, and then the final fitment of the shaft. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that. Right? Really happy with how this all turned out. Alright, let's turn the screw. I've already done this before over some concerns with how stiff the frame is. It's not super stiff. So we may be changing some designs here, I don't know. But in the meantime, I'll tell you right now, it's not that hard to get. There's 30 thou worth of preload. I have no idea if that's enough. A moment of truth. Set the dial indicator back to the 30 that it was on. We're going to release the block and let's see what kind of noodle we got. Who knows? Oh. So at least tell us how much it shrunk by. Good heavens. Well, there you go, folks. It was not nothing. That's 60 thou worth of shrink pinched in this way, just from doing those finish welds. So that's something. It's about a 1/16 of an inch. I should probably tell you what 60 thou actually equals in the real world.
So I didn't know if this was good or bad, so I stuck my valve spring gauge underneath the head of the English wheel, and then I measured how much deflection I had for 300 pounds of force. I then went and called on a couple of friends who had English wheels in their garages and tested their machines.
All right, so there's 300 PSI, and we moved 99 thou. So we've zoomed in, 300 there, and show me that one there. And we can see how much it's moved. So that one was that same amount, so 78, 79 thou.
So I checked everywhere. No one can tell me if what's right, what's wrong. They all say things like something is stiff or something isn't that stiff. I didn't know. So I decided to just do some rough calculations and see whether or not adding a little bit of material to the frame before we're all finished is going to work. Other people were saying, oh, well, you know, try it out, see if it works okay. And I'm like, I don't work that way, folks. So I'm never going to try something out. I'm going to always try to make it better before I start. It's just, I don't know, it's a personal failing or habit or something. So I've added material to the inside of this. It's actually thicker wall than the other material at 1/4 or 6.4 mil wall. And it should increase the stiffness rather dramatically. So I'm just going to show a little bit of the welding. I spent a lot of time setting these shots up, and they're a pain to do. They sure are fun. So I just wanted to show you there at the start. When you're doing the TIG thing, let it sit for a minute, get the puddle nicely formed, and then weld. It's, you know, I see a lot of, you know, anyway, look at your heat affected zone. It should be about the same all the way across your weld. If it isn't, you're not doing it right. Anyway, that's just the final pass. The root pass went in, and then these are the final passes. And all I'm trying to do is just bring that cap right up so it fills the material. I don't want to overfill the joint. I don't want great big gobby welds on the outside. I just want it filled till it's flush or pretty close to flush. In this case, I didn't even care if it wasn't perfectly flush. It just had to tie in the outside of the walls on both sides. So I did that. This is, well, these aren't really a fillet weld because of the nature of the weld setup. Again, letting the weld pool form at the start, throwing a couple of dabs of wire in there, and then trucking along. Again, this one was hard. The camera is all over where I'm welding. I have no idea how Jody on Welding Tips and Tricks does this. None at all. Anyway, I ended up cutting half of this off because you guys are driving me crazy just being there. Anyway, finish it off, back the arc off slowly, add a little bit more wire to the puddle, and then let it cool off.
Okay, so it's the next day. Everything is obviously as cool as it can be. And what we were trying to achieve there was just to get this area filled. Again, with the end of the tube that was cut, it's got a sharp edge there, and we were just trying to blend that in to this rounded edge. Then we've got the little area that sort of spans between it, and then whenever we've got that sharp edge of the tube, then we've filled that right up to the top. So there's no point in welding, in my view. There's no point in welding the whole thing along because the risk of putting too much heat into it and causing extra stress is a little bit too great. We did hear that one little pop as we went by, so we obviously have stressed the frame out a little bit, but we'll see. Now, next steps is to go ahead and get these brackets. So we built the brackets. You can see how nicely that's gone. The parts fit in perfectly and then bolt straight into the table. Now, that's the last step, so we're going to weld the insides now, weld the brackets on, and then the English wheel frame is then complete. So only a million details, but on every journey, right, you're going to have a million details. All right, let's get rolling. There we have it. So 300 pounds on the gauge, and we've got 7.5 thou here worth of movement. So before we had between sort of 24 and 26 thou, something like that. I'll double check the data. And this has gone everywhere from about 6 to 8 is kind of the variance that I get there. So
we're going to call that good. Now, the rest of everything that I have to do, we're still a long way back. I spent, well, this was lunchtime, evenings, and whatever for an entire week. Just putting the legs on takes about 5 minutes, so that was fine. But the rest of it was just epic piles of time. There is 3 weeks worth of work in this video, contracted down to 33 minutes. A number of gigabytes I left on the floor is well, I mean, it's tragically boring, really, but just trying to help out here. Don't forget, get those tungstens nice and sharp. Every once in a while I dip. And I did pulse. Like, you can see the pulsing going on in the background. There's no shame in that when you're just putting feet on something. You might as well make your welds look nice. So this is just a fun time when you're doing the last few welds on any project. But we're still a ways back. Not done when the feet go on.
Okay, so there's the legs all welded on. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that. We'll take it. Final welds of the project. It's always nice if they go in well. Okay, that's it for welding. Nothing left, but there's still lots. But anyway, getting closer.
So once I was done with everything and all the welds were finished, it was just epic piles of grinding. The number of discs I went through, just 80 grit. You go around, you try to get rid of all the scratches because the powder coat will show those up, and you do the best you can. You finish every single corner. You pay attention to every single detail in order to make this project look as good as it can look. This is probably 2 or 3 days worth of work.
Now that I've got the wheel mounted, what I've done is I've gone in, and remember, I put a 1/4 inch of material on the top of the tube here. And I've simply filed this and then sanded it to be perfectly parallel with the wheel, right? So instead of having to use the adjuster, and on the wheel, the only part that I bought, other than the wheels, was the bottom adjuster. Again, this stuff's coming from Hoosier Profiles. I understand that they're no longer in the game of making either the anvils, the wheels, the holders, anyway, contact them if you're interested. They may still do one for you, but the adjuster, for the price, I couldn't justify even starting to think about making it. So it has 4 screws on it that can level it, but I thought it was best to simply ensure that any leveling should be a really fine adjustment, but I got this down to I don't need to adjust it. So we can just wind that in solid, put the anvils in, and I'm going to show you how we did with that in terms of fitment. So I got it so that I didn't have to fit it. I needed about 1/2 degree, by the way. So between the welding just pinching things a little bit, there's always going to be something in there that'll drive you a little crazy. But I got it nailed down pretty well. So happy again. I'm always happy with the result. If I wasn't happy with the result, I wouldn't show you. Okay, I'm gonna go throw the wheel on. We're gonna have a look. So I did buy a full set of the Hoosier Profile wheels. They're 3 inches. This is an 8x3. They're hardened. I bought them a long time ago, like about 5 years ago. My wife reminds me of these things from time to time. Anyway, I bought them a long time ago, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And part of that kit, in fact, I only bought the small set originally because Joe used to sell them that way, where he'd sell you just a few wheels. And then he started just selling the full sets. Anyway, I bought the small set at the first, and then I went back to him and bought the more when I could afford them. And I didn't even have the wheel built until now. I just simply couldn't afford to buy it all at once. So again, you do what you can when you're trying to acquire the tools, right? So that just fits in here, and we'll just zoom in, show you how that all works. Just give it a spin. I don't even have the set screws in the axle here. You can't hear it. It's absolutely perfect. And you're gonna see it's like, just tighten it up. It's making full contact all the way across. Okay, so that was a little bit of work to get ourselves to this position. It just like an hour with a file. It wasn't that bad, and a little bit of sanding to get the finish really nice. just to get those two things leveled up. So now when we send it off to powder coat, as they heat up the part in the powder coating oven, it could also move its tube. It'll do these things. And then we can use that fine adjustment if needed to get a last dial in of this perfectly. Okay, so I guess there's only one thing left to do, folks. And that's to take the flat wheel out and actually try to wheel some sheet metal. So I'm going to give that a shot for the first time in my life, and you're going to watch. Alright, so all I've done here is just clean off with a little bit of WD-40, just the little bits of oils and things that are on the wheel. Just want to make sure stuff is clean. I know nothing about this. I just know what I've watched on YouTube. This is terrible. I shouldn't be doing this. But anyway, I'll be just like you. You have never done this either. That's probably why you're watching. Okay, so somebody asked me about wheels and to talk about things for a little while. I don't know anything about any of that, so I don't want to bore you too much about it. I simply bought the best quality wheel that I could afford. So I know, and it went 8x3. I read a lot of forums. I did what I could. The only thing I really learned is the wheels that I bought from Who's Your Profile do have flats, which means there's a flat spot at the mating surface. Now there's a different radius to each one of them. The radiuses are listed on the wheels. This is the biggest radius wheel that I have, which is 12 inch. All right, so it's got a 12-inch radius this way. And what I know is wheels that have flats need frames that are stiff. Wheels that are full radiuses need frames that are not as stiff. So the Harbor Freight wheels that you've seen are pretty loosey-goosey, as we just showed you in the video. And they have full radius wheels, and they seem to work just fine. I had wheels with flats, so my wheel needed to be a little stiffer. Now, people say all kinds of crazy things about stiffness, as if they've measured it, but in truth, they've never measured any of this stuff. So if other people want to measure it, I was using a spring gauge just for valve springs. I put 300 pounds of force underneath the wheel, and I measured the deflection of the upper arm. So if you want to repeat those measurements, put them out on YouTube. It'd be really useful. I've measured all of 3 wheels. This one I've measured twice, so I'm going to count that as 4. Adding the extra material in the stiffener brace in the middle decreased the length of the arm. Again, I lost 3 inches to the inside, which doesn't matter at all. And I've added stiffness to the inside. Every C-clamp I've ever seen has exactly the same structure. So I don't know why everyone tries to stiffen their wheels to the outside as if the top wheel isn't going to move. The top wheel has to flex a little bit. How much does it need to flex? I have no idea. Mine will move between 6 and 8 thousandths of an inch at 300 pounds. Most wheeling is done at 500 to 1,000 pounds of tip pressure. That's the pressure underneath the wheel. This is all I know. Most of this is totally not scientific for a lot of people. They just have opinions. I hate that. It's a personal gripe of mine. Measure stuff. There's really no big deal to measuring it if you could. Guys say, oh, the wheel's too stiff, or it's too soft, or it's too whatever. Measure it. Give somebody a fighting chance if they're in their garage or trying to replicate something. Anyway, I did what I could. All faults mine, all engineering mine. So I did what I could. I've just found a little off-cut piece of 20 gauge. I'm gonna just quickly clean it up. It's been sitting in my shop for a while, years probably. I will just go over it very quickly with some Scotch-Brite and a little bit of WD-40. It's a brand new wheel for me, and I'm just trying not to wreck it. And then we're gonna clamp it down. We're gonna see how it goes. I'm not expecting miracles, but let's see. So I'm gonna dial it down until we hit it. And I've just shifted, I don't know, how much? Who knows? A turn or two. Okay, so here we go. Do I know how to do a tracking pattern? Not at all. It's worse than driving a car. Okay, so you can see in just a few minutes how much I have developed that panel. Can't do the old... Yeah, you can see that there pretty good. That's kind of cool. Alright, I'm going to keep playing with this and we'll show you what we come up with in the end. Alright, so just a few minutes. I have no idea what I'm doing, but let me just show you what I was doing. Or at least what I found works. I can't watch YouTube and wheel at the same time. Right, so that's... We're not using massive pressure. Got a bit of pressure on the wheel. And I'm finding that the easiest way to do the tracking is to stare straight at the wheel and concentrate, just like a lot of things that I've learned. There's a lot more skill than it looks like. You got to concentrate on it. And then I just concentrate on making a turn and then straightening it out forward. Making a small turn, straightening it out, forward. Making a small angle turn, forward, straight, and then straight, and a sort of zigzag. Welders will be very familiar with this. You may actually catch on to this a little bit more quickly than other people. And then if I want to go in the other direction, the turn is just simply the other way. So now I'm pulling straight, I'm turning at the far end. So I'm not using massive amounts of pressure on the wheel. I don't know what massive amounts of pressure would be. I should put a gauge on it. That would be sort of fun, just to know. Probably be too much science for this field to recognize that. Trying to keep my tracks close, because I've read that's what you're supposed to do. I guess you could do it as really, really small zigzags. I don't think I got that kind of skill. Not yet, anyway. Okay, so then all I did there at the end, you may have seen that in the time lapse, was just lowered the pressure a little bit, and then I was going across, because you can feel it. You can feel it really nicely. Again, how stiff did this wheel have to be so that I could learn properly? I have no idea. But I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now, I can tell you. Because I can feel the bumps going across. Like I can feel the track marks just a little bit. Like they're not massive, clearly. You can see it's already starting to shine. Right, and I can just kind of wash them out. Going back this way. Maybe put a little bit more torque in them and it'll come out more quickly, but it might also get away from me more quickly. Like my lines are really far apart here, so I'm going to want to tighten that up. I'm not trying to make anything specific, so I don't consider this learning. I'm going to try to do some learning. I'm going to try to run some video on that coming up, because this is just goofing around. This is just proof that things work. It's nothing more than that. I don't think I can develop skill at this until I actually have something to make. And when I have to make something, then it becomes more serious. And within just a few minutes, this is where I ended up. Like, again, no clue what I'm doing, but sure it's fun. There, you can see us in the reflection of our curved panel. Not bad. I think we'll take it. Yeah, loving that. I've stopped there simply because I've started to get the edge bite on the bottom anvil, because that is the curvature of the bottom anvil. So unless I want to continue doing this all day, then I don't see that there's a point. Alright, thanks for staying with me all the way to the end of the video. Here we are. I think we're done. I'm happy enough with how it all works. There's no way I'm going to be mounting the anvils and other things to this. Even the wheel won't normally be on it. My shop is quite small, quite dirty and dusty. All of these are going to get put away in boxes, and then they'll come out when I need them. It's no big deal to put the wheels on and off the machine. It's actually quite easy. It still has to get sent out for powder coat, so we've got that to do yet. Kind of narrowing in on a light green color, but if you got other ideas, in the description below, that's where those go. Still interested in seeing those. And so there, that's the piece I finished up with, right? So there you are. I'm super happy with that as a first effort. Again, I have no idea what I'm even making or what I'm even doing. I'm just playing around. So I think we'll be able to make panels. I don't know. That's going to be our next test. It won't be our next video, but it will be our next test. We'll catch you on the next episode. Keep your stick on the ice. Just push it home. So easy. Right, so we'll just put a little clamp on it, throw the set screws in it, and watch it spin. No run out. Way to go, Hoosier Profiles. They promise no run out. There's nothing in these wheels. I would throw a dial indicator on it, but I'm not going to be rude and even think about it. Who cares? I'd need a 10th indicator, I believe, for this. It's so true.